Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host, Owen James. Guys, let's please hit that sub, help the channel to keep on growing. Well, it is match day of a sort. It's pre-season friendly match day as Rangers travel south to Birmingham to take on Birmingham City at St Andrews tonight in the Trevor Francis Memorial Trophy. Rangers did make the 50-minute flight to Birmingham last night, and there was some interesting people one interesting player in particular in the travelling party that we may not have expected as travelling or certainly being part of the squad for tonight's game. And we're going to touch on that in tonight's video. We're also going to touch on Johnly Yfeko, who has made a move away from the club, not on a permanent basis as was first believed. We're also going to touch on Scott Wright and the fact that he has a triumvirate of championship clubs in pursuit of him. Add to that as well a report that there is a possibility of Tom Lawrence being offered a new contract. We'll talk about that a little bit. And of course, a little look ahead to tonight's game as Rangers take the field at St Andrews for that game against Birmingham City. Right, so where to start? So the hot topic over the last 24 to 48 hours has been news of Connor Goldson reportedly on his way to Aris Limassol. Just to very quickly recap the story for you, he was seen boarding a private jet at Prestwick Airport, destination Cyprus, not destination unknown, as Alex Calabria once sang. I think it was Alex Calabria. Alex Gaudino, sorry, destination Calabria. So yeah, he was going to Cyprus, not to the Napa, on holiday, not to have it large, and not to do his rave, not to DJ apparently, but to have discussions with Aris Limassol of the Cypriot Premier League. Now, according to reports, it was that he was heading out there for a medical. And, you know, as we know, that when a player heads out for a medical, it's pretty much that once that medical is done, the move then pretty much follows within 24 hours and it's quickly done. And everybody's happy as the transfer fees are paid. People have money. We have money to spend. We go, ooh, we can get a player, and so on and so forth. Obviously, it is very important that Rangers do bring in some fresh blood ahead of that 1st of August deadline, which is the deadline to submit your European Champions League squads for the 3rd qualifying round. Remembering, of course, you can only make 2 changes between the 3rd and the playoff rounds. And there's also a limited number of replacements as well before the group stages. So Rangers do need to get in place these players fairly quickly. Now, of course, a lot of this depends on the income of funds, as we know, to obviously cut the squad size down, to lower the wage bill, to put Philippe Clement, Niels Koppen and the Rangers board in a position to actually invest in this group and bring them on. Now, it was felt that we would very much be soon hearing that Connor Goldson was off to Aris for 2.5 million. That was the reported amount. That was what was been stated in the media. However, why is it always a however, Rangers? Why can't we just have a, and they've been linked with, and they've just been sold to, and here's the money? Why can't we just do that? Why can't we be like a normal club that just does business in a normal way? Why do we have to make a drama out of a crisis? Whatever that was from. So, what do we know? So, Aris's president has been speaking as regards this possible transfer. Now, he wasn't drawn on whether it was Connor Goldson or not. That's very interesting. What he did say, however, was that the transfer that Aris were trying to make was not as straightforward as first might seem, and there was a number of moving parts in this deal, and it was not straightforward. Meaning, of course, that the deal wouldn't go through imminently. This is my words, not his. Which leaves you kind of thinking, what are these moving parts? What are these positions? What are these difficulties that are causing, this move not to just go through? So, it could be a number of things, thinking about it and trying to think outside the box as well as in the box and round the box and underneath the box and on top of the box. It could be that Connor Goldson's not 100% sold on Aris and that there are other offers out there, then perhaps he's having a look, seeing is something more lucrative on the cards for him and his family. He's obviously got family issues as well with one of his sons. I think it's one of his sons being diagnosed with the same heart condition as Connor had. That may be another issue, as he looks at medical treatment and the best facilities for his sons and so on and so forth. That also could be holding up the deal. It could also be the club holding up the deal. It could be that Aris have not finalized a fee and not finalized terms of a transfer with Rangers yet. It could be that it's 2.5 million, but with add-ons of some description. It could even be that Rangers are not prepared to allow Goldson to go until a replacement is in place. Now, this we've seen with some clubs, you know, as I think was it Philippe Clement mentioned or Alex Ray mentioned, someone mentioned about clubs being unwilling to sell players until they have a replacement lined up, which, you know, is eminently very sensible. You don't want to sell 4 or 5 of your players and then go, oh shit, we've got a lot of money, but we can't sign anybody. And there's no one really left that we want. So, you know, that's always a big problem, isn't it? So it may be that Rangers are looking to tie up a deal for somebody. And then obviously that deal will then go. It's a bit like when you buy a house, isn't it? You know, that chain has to move once everybody exchanges. And that may be what they're looking to do with a player. Now, it does seem very odd, you know, it does seem very Rangersy kind of thing to do. You know, most clubs want to buy a player, they buy a player, and most clubs want to sell a player, they sell a player. It doesn't really depend on somebody selling the house or whatever. So look, you know, Connor Goldson, at the moment, it looks like he is staying as part of the Rangers squad. Further proof of that was provided as Connor travelled with the team to Birmingham last night. It was also announced that Connor Goldson is part of the matchday squad for tonight's game. Now, given the fact that Connor didn't play on Saturday, there's a fairly good chance he could start tonight against Birmingham City, who, a reminder, they are a League One English club. So, you know, could Connor Goldson be in the lineup? What does this mean? It's just very interesting, isn't it? And I think a little disappointing from one aspect. You know, you kind of get yourself sorted to kind of think, well, okay, Hadji's going, Tav's going, Wright's going, Goldson's going, Lawrence could be going, Dowell could be going, and so on and so forth. That's money. We've got money now. We get rid of 5 or 6 players. We can bring in 2 or 3, 4 more, you know, but it seems that obviously isn't happening and it's not straightforward. It's never straightforward. It's Rangers. I mean, when do we ever do anything in a straightforward manner? I mean, let's face it, it would be boring, wouldn't it, if we did it in a straightforward manner? Okay, so that's where we are with Goldson at the moment. Deal isn't going through yet. There are a number of moving parts in place. We have to overcome those. What they are, fuck knows. Okay, let's move it along. So we know that another defender who was rumoured to be leaving the club this summer was Johnly Yfeko. Now, I like Johnly Yfeko. I think he's a very physically strong, quick player. You know, the times I've seen him play for the B team and obviously for the first team against Morton, you know, he looked fairly decent. Still a very raw kid with a lot to learn. Now, according to reports in the English media, which have then been picked up by the Scottish media, you know, it's that Johnly Yfeko has joined Exeter City. Now, not on a permanent contract, as was first being rumoured. It is on a season-long loan. I think this is an eminently sensible move by Rangers. You know, for a player like Johnly, who's a young player coming through the system, you know, sending him back to his home, you know, back to England is good. But, you know, giving him that independence away from the club, you know, in a new league, playing for a new team, getting him first team football, he's likely to get, you know, first team minutes down at Exeter is the right move. You know, he's realistically not going to get a lot of first team minutes at Rangers. You don't want to put him into the Scottish Premier League because you don't want someone of his talent playing in that league, you know, especially not, you know, if it could disadvantage you. But look, it's a good move. It's a good move for Johnly. He'll get him first team football. It's a good move for Rangers, you know, because it will give us a chance to get this lad bloody battle hardened, toughened to then when he comes back to the club at the end of this season to see, right, has this lad got a future with us? Is he someone we want to invest more time, money and effort into bringing on and putting into our first team? So I think overall, this is a very good move. And it could be, you know, with the squad size as well, sending a number of the young players that realistically are not going to get a lot of minutes this season out on loan could be a good move. You know, likes of Leon King have been mentioned as a possible loanee. You know, this for me would be a sensible option, I think. You know, if Big Phil decides that these players are, you know, realistically not going to get a lot of minutes, are not going to feature very often, and are perhaps not, you know, part core to his plans this coming season, that, you know, that we send them out on loan. We send these kids out on loan to get experience. You know, I think Kieran Wright's just gone out on loan. You know, there's a number of players that, you know, if we send them out on loan, I think would get that experience, get that those match minutes, get the first team experience. And I think a lot of time that's what's lacking in them. And if you can get that somewhere else, now I'm not saying that prepares you to play for Rangers, because it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. Playing for Exeter City at the other St James's Park doesn't obviously get you prepared to play for Rangers at Ibrox in front of 50,000 people. Of course it doesn't. But it's the first team football minutes, isn't it? It's the experience of playing first team football. It's the discipline of playing first team football that is important to get into these players. So I think this is a good move for the club, a good move for Yfeko, and hopefully we get him back next summer. I bet even better player, ready to go, and, you know, looking positive for the future. Now, there was a lot of reports, wasn't there, around Scott Wright and the possible destination being Sheffield Wednesday. The club's saviour, manager Danny Rule, talked a little bit about, wanting to bring in players. Didn't specifically mention Scott Wright, but it was been obviously strongly rumoured from the club that it is Scott Wright. Now, Scott played quite well against Man United in his build-up play, was shocking with his final product. But, that's Scott Wright, isn't it? And I think there's a growing narrative again across the club that he has not got a future at this club. And if Rangers can get a transfer fee for him, around about 500, 600,000, then, that would be a decent piece of business for someone like Scott Wright, and it would be a good move for the club. Now, according to reports in the English media, 3 championship clubs are looking at Wright. Now, we know one is Sheffield Wednesday. The other 2 are reported to be Preston North End and Derby County. Now, Preston North End were a team that were playoff contenders last season, but fell away, for a long time, actually led the league, and could see Scott Wright as a valuable addition to their squad this season to help them try and kick on to the next level, given the experience that Scott will bring, having played for Rangers, having played European football, having played football at a very high, intense level. So that's, one thing. Now, the other team, obviously, is Derby County, who have just been promoted from League One back to the Championship as they look to build a Championship-type squad. So, this is the reports that there are 3 English Championship teams in pursuit of Scott Wright. Now, this is obviously good news for Scott. This will give him, a fairly decent level of football to play at. The English Championship is probably one of the most competitive leagues in world football. Any of you ever seen any English Championship football? Have seen the physical rough tumble, the speed it's played at, the intensity, and the fact on any given day anybody can beat anybody, can show how competitive this league is. So this will be a good destination for Scott. As well, English Championship clubs on the whole, pay decent wages. They're not poor payers because of the fact that they do have, better revenue streams down there. Their recent TV deal is far in excess of anything that Scottish FA were able to negotiate with Sky, due to the product, obviously. So, this could be a good move, and it can also be a good move for Rangers. If 3 clubs are interested in a player, you could perhaps even get a little mini bidding war going. I mean, okay, it's only Scott Wright, but look, it's still going to be a little mini bidding war. So anything we can do to generate as many extra funds as possible for the club has got to be a positive, hasn't it? A massive positive. Right, let's move it on and talk about Tom Lawrence. Now, look, I want to make one thing clear and place one thing on record before I start talking this topic through. Number 1, I like Tom Lawrence. I think he's a good player. I think he's good going forward. I think he's got a cracking shot on him. He's offensive-minded. He can play a number of positions. They're the positives. The negatives, of course, are that he's not particularly quick and that we do need legs and speed up front, and also that he gets injured quite a lot and has missed a lot of game time for Rangers with his injuries. So what do we know about Tom Lawrence? Well, Thomas Morris Lawrence. I mean, what a quality middle name that is. That's a proper middle name. That Thomas Morris Lawrence. I mean, whoever his, whatever his parents were thinking, that's just elite level thinking. Morris. I mean, perhaps he was named after the Morris mine. I don't know why he was named Morris, but decent name, mate. He's from Wrexham in Wales. He's a Welsh international. We know that. We know he can play in a number of positions. But we know as well that his contract expires next season. So that will mean that, again, he can walk for absolutely nothing come next summer. And that, again, places in a position that we've been in for the last 2 seasons where players have walked for nothing. We've lost 10 players in the last 2 seasons for absolutely nothing. And a number of those players, I feel, could have generated substantial income for the club. The Kents, the Moreloses, the Hellanders, the Roofs, Lundstroms, Barisiches of this world. So the rumour has it, or the report has it, that Tom Lawrence has or is in the process of negotiating a 1-year contract extension with Rangers. Now, he's only played 41 games for us, 6 goals, 5 assists, 11 goal contributions. Given his position, he's not particularly brilliant. And I think it's, again, part of this whole issue surrounding our 10s not getting enough goals and not providing enough assists. If you're playing at 10 and if you're given that license to be that 10 and that freedom to have, you should be scoring 10, 15 goals a season. You really shouldn't. Nobody has really managed that for Rangers in recent times. Certainly not Lawrence, certainly not Cantwell, certainly not Hadji. So, look, this is where we're up to with Tom. Now, look, Tom Lawrence last year had some very good performances. Don't get me wrong. He had some very poor performances, which unfortunately for him came in the Old Firm games. I can see the wisdom in giving him a 1-year contract because it means that he doesn't walk for nothing. And that come January next year, if we want to sell him, if he's still at the club, we can get some money for him. Or if we give him another year's contract now and he's got 2 years, and then we try and sell him this summer, then there's 2 years on his deal, not just one, which naturally raises the price a little bit. The moment a player gets down to the final year of his contract, it naturally lowers his value. That's just the way it works with teams going, well, this is what we're prepared to offer. If you're not going to take it to us, we'll just wait till next summer and we'll get him for nothing and we'll give him the money. And, clubs then think, okay, we'll take it. Okay, so give him a 2-year deal. That could be the reasoning. That could be the thinking behind it. So I'm not as opposed to it as some fans are. I've seen some, I know that Rangers social media can be a very toxic place. And I've seen some fans absolutely losing their shit over this. But I can see this business sense behind it, that give him another year. It means that, obviously his value will be raised a little bit. It means that obviously, we're not going to lose him for nothing. And Clement has spoken, hasn't he, about the fact that that needs to stop happening. So interesting news nonetheless about Tom. I still think we have a major issue in that 10 position. And I'll talk about that on another video at another point in time. Look, that's where we're up to in terms of the players leaving or the players that, we haven't really talked about players arriving. Václav Černý was linked today. Wolfsburg centre forward, decent player, good Czech centre forward. Think he will do well for us. We'll talk a little bit more about him after tonight's game, obviously. So tonight, Rangers travel to St Andrews to take on Birmingham City, a very decent League One. Well, they probably will be a very decent League One team. We don't really know. They're newly relegated, obviously, from the Championship, but their coach and their manager have rebuilt their squad to some extent. Now, I made some mistakes in yesterday's video. I do apologise for that. I was going off Birmingham fan sites. Got some Birmingham fans loving it, of course, poking their noses in and pointing it out, some of who have been banned. But I stand by, on what I said. I've done my best to try and find out about the club. And I do. And look, my feelings about Birmingham City and Birmingham City Centre, they're just personal feelings, guys. I've been into Birmingham an awful lot. I used to work for a company that drove a lot in Birmingham, and I know Birmingham fairly well. And look, it is what it is. It is what it is. So look, tonight's game, what do we want to see? For me, again, it's not so much about the overall. Yes, the result is important. Look, for me, yes, the result is very important. I think losing to a League One English club would be fairly humiliating, if I'm being honest with you. Would be more than humiliating, it'd be fairly embarrassing. Especially, as the fact that, look, if it was a Championship club, you could kind of try and reason it out a little bit. They do have a lot more money than us. Still wouldn't be great. If it was a Premier League team, fair enough. Premier League teams have vastly superior budgets, but Rangers are a major European team. They should be trying to compete with these teams, and we certainly shouldn't be, worrying about a League One English team. You wouldn't find an English a Premier League club worrying about a League One English team. But to me tonight, it's about trying to develop that team. And I know that's tough with the fact that there could be players coming in, players could be going out. It's very much a limbo situation, and I think it's kind of a bit of it's an interesting one, isn't it? And what we've got to try and do is get the best out of what we've got at this moment in time. So what we need to see tonight is very much kind of the same things I talked about before the Man United game. And it should be a little bit easier tonight playing Birmingham, obviously. The Birmingham's players won't be as good even as Manchester United's kids. Man United's kids are particularly fantastic. So look, looking at patterns of play, looking at patterns of attacking play, patterns of defense staying switched on, the front four being creative, creating chances, taking chances, and the speed of play being better, quicker, slicker. That's what we need to see tonight. And when chances are generated, being that little bit more clinical in front of goal is certainly something we need to see. So look, yes, we do have some players that do need to be moved on. Yes, we do have some players that are not particularly up to the standard of Rangers. But it's not all doom and gloom with this squad. This squad are not 30 complete and utter, well, there's some of them are, but they're not all complete and utter shit. They're not all complete and utter turds. You've got Danilo, who I think is potentially a very good footballer. You've got Connor Barron, who I think is just fabulous. I love Connor Barron. I love his attitude, his type of play. I think he's going to be a great player for us. Mohamed Diamande, who's looking class. Oscar Cortez, who I think will be going to be a very good player. Ross McCausland, who is a Rangers man through and through, wears his heart on his sleeve, goes direct, tries his heart every game, and I think, you know, he's a top player. Well, could be a top player. Dujon Sterling, again, you know, the man who can play in a number of positions, but plays all those positions really, really well. You know, a top player. Ridvan, a top left back. You know, there are reasons to be cheerful, reasons to be hopeful. You know, the squad is not all as bad as we think it could be. Jack Butland, one of the best goalkeepers in Britain. So, you know, you look at that team and you've got, what, 6, 7 names that I've mentioned there. It only means, you know, you're missing, say, 4 or 5 players, which I know is a lot. But there are a lot of positives to take from this squad. There are a number of players who, you know, can have a big part to play this season and can help us be successful this season due to their ability and their talent. But we do need to sign players. I do know that. I realise that. Most teams do. Right, guys, thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. As always, please keep your eyes open for any more content coming out. Best way to make sure you don't miss out, smash the sub, ring the notification bell. Well, thank you for watching. Thank you for your phenomenal support over the last few days. It's been going crazy with subs and views and everything. It's been fabulous. On the way out, as always, guys, please smash the like. And number 2, remember always, we are the people.